This is Around the A, a weekly look at the top stories, news, and interviews from the NHL's top developmental league, with your hosts David Foote and Patrick Williams on the Sports Podcasting Network.
It's Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network, episode 22 of this inaugural season with David Foote and Patrick Williams. Glad to have you along, whether you're now a long-time listener or a first-time listener. Great to have you here as we dive into the latest news, notes, and headlines from around the American Hockey League. The season is done, but still lots of news trickling out. We're going to talk a bit about some of the AHL awards that were handed out recently. The NHL's return to play format is going to naturally have some effect on the American Hockey League. We'll talk about that. We'll get into some what-ifs on if the AHL had adopted the same return to play proposal, and we'll also get into more of the COVID-19 fallout with Larry Landon, who is the head of the Professional Hockey Players Association, the union representing AHL players. A lot to get into this week, and we're glad to have you with us. As has been the case, Pat, in the last few weeks, no hockey, but still plenty of news for us to dissect here on the show.
Yeah, that's for sure. We went through kind of a real dry spell for about, 5 or 6 weeks after the season was paused or suspended or however you want to term it. And once May 11th rolled around, we had the AHL announcement. Now, this week we've had the NHL's announcements, and it's ever since then it's come pretty fast and furious. And as well, we've had the new Las Vegas AHL franchise making a lot of news recently. So it really hasn't slowed down, all things considered. I mean, especially when you factor in that nobody's played a game on the ice in the last 2.5 months. So the hockey world's still going, even if it's not going on the ice.
Yeah, and again, we'll get to some of the potential impacts on the American Hockey League with the NHL's return-to-play format in a few minutes. But let's start with some more hardware. We've talked about the all-rookie team and the league all-stars for the 2019-20 season last week. And if you're new to the program, check our Twitter at AroundTheAPod, and there's links there where you can find all of our past episodes, including our in-depth chat with the outgoing president and CEO of the league, Dave Andrews. Last week, again, we talked about those all-star teams, but 4 more, at least, awards have been handed out prior to the taping of this show. We are still waiting for the MVP and Rookie of the Year awards to come out later this week. But let's start with the first of those 4 handed out last week, the Fred T. Hunt Memorial Award, which is for sportsmanship, determination, and dedication to the game of hockey. And quite fittingly, I'd say, goes to John McCarthy out of the San Jose Barracuda. Quite the story for him.
Absolutely. This award is essentially the Masterton trophy for the American League. And John McCarthy's been a real fixture in the American League for over a decade. A guy whose goes as far back as the Worcester Sharks days. Captain for that club, has played the most games of any player in the American League history of the San Jose Sharks. And he had a really just sudden end to his career this past December. What was a hole in his heart led to a ischemic stroke. And it's one of those conditions where it's not a matter of whether or not you retire. It's pretty immediate that you have to retire. And his career came to an end. He managed to squeeze a lot, though, into his playing career. 88 NHL games. He played in the 2018 Olympics for the United States. And right after the announcement of his retirement, he moved right behind the bench for the Barracuda. And only 33 years old. So he's getting, in some ways, an early start in his coaching career. And he's always been a kind of guy, a real top-notch leader, a winner. He was a captain at Boston University during his college days. He won a championship there. So a guy who, didn't have a whole lot in terms of stature and status coming out of college, as an unheralded prospect. But, much to his credit, he built himself a excellent career, played 11 pro seasons, and now he's in the coaching game. So excellent choice. This is always a difficult award to pick because, there's no shortage of candidates. I mean, the veterans in this league, if you're a veteran, very good chance that you're a real solid citizen on and off the ice. A very great choice. I thought it was an excellent choice for the award. You look at the players that have won in the past, Craig Cunningham, Brian Helmer, some real solid, top-notch veterans across the league in this history. So full credit to him, John McCarthy, for winning this award.
John McCarthy, the Fred T. Hunt Memorial Award, again, for sportsmanship, determination, and dedication to the game of hockey. Every year there are a few no-doubters in the league awards, and I think the next one that we're going to discuss certainly falls into that category. Milwaukee Admirals coach Carl Taylor named the Coach of the Year, leading the Ads to a 41-14, 5-3 record, first overall in the AHL, and I don't think there's a whole lot more you can say about the job he did with that Milwaukee group. They came flying out of the gate, and they never looked back right through to when the season was suspended.
Yeah, led the league in points, point percentage, and wins. They just went on that tear, 13-game winning streak in November. That really just vaulted them past everybody right from the get-go. And the thing I always look from a coach is, where's his team's PK at? And Milwaukee was 6th overall. So as much as they had talent, up front, and were able to put the puck in the net, they were an excellent team defensively. And they were number one, obviously, in goals against per game, and like I said, 6th overall in the PK. I want to just give, though, a real plug, though, to Jay Leach of the Providence Bruins. I thought he did an excellent job this season with that club. Didn't necessarily have a team full of stars, but of all the teams I saw this year, and I saw everybody at one point or another, it was just such a cohesive team. They played their systems excellent. The thing about Providence, every year it seems like they produce a couple players each year to come in, fill in a gap in the Boston Bruin lineup. Not necessarily are they producing the real standout top-end prospects, but the real solid role player types really been a specialty, and I think Jay Leach has been a huge part of that. He was a captain during his playing days. One of the best leaders I've ever come across. And, it wasn't too surprising that he went into coaching, and, already he's not even 40 years old yet, I believe. And he's really built himself an excellent coaching resume. So I think he's a guy I think is sometimes overlooked, as I think the Providence Bruins in general are overlooked in this league, because they don't necessarily have the top 10 prospect type players, but every year in, year out, they're in the playoff mix. I believe they made it 7 years in a row now. They would have made it this year. They were 1st overall in the Eastern Conference. I think had they ended up playing a full season here, I think a Providence-Milwaukee final would have been a real clash between excellent teams. So Carl Taylor, full credit to him, Jay Leach as well. It's coaching in this league, really, there's no team where you look at the coaching staff and view it as a weak spot. I mean, everybody in this league, second best league in the world. The coaching is top notch, and it's obviously a huge part of what this league's mission is, which is development. And as much as drafting matters, it's the development stage that really makes the difference, and the coaching makes or breaks that. So I think this award, it really tells you a lot. I mean, you look at some of the guys that have won it throughout the years, it's just a really impressive list. Kevin Dineen, Peter Laviolette, Barry Trotz, Mark Crawford, Claude Julien. I mean, right down the list. I mean, it's just guys that are on the fast track at the time to the NHL. And I see no reason to think that Carl Taylor can't make that same jump at some point.
Couple more AHL year-end awards to go over here, and then we'll talk a bit about the NHL's return to play. Also coming up on the show again, if you're interested in what's to come, Larry Landon, the president of the Professional Hockey Players Association, will break down what COVID-19 means for the Players Union. And also we'll chat with Kyle Mace, who runs the Chocolate Hockey website. covering the Hershey Bears. They've got a fantastic community initiative that they're doing, and we want to make sure we shed some light on that. So that's all coming up here on episode 22 of Around the A. Let's go to the crease, and Kaapo Kähkönen is the outstanding goaltender of the year for the American Hockey League, and what a season he put together in net for the Iowa Wild, leading the AHL in wins, 25-6-3, the record, leading in shutouts with 7. He was ranked 4th in goals against average and save percentage, and was in the top 10 for minutes played and shots faced. A busy sophomore season for the young Finnish netminder, and steadily improved on his numbers from last season, and made his NHL debut this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 23 years old, 4th-round pick, so not a guy that came in with a ton of fanfare necessarily, but he came over last season, worked with Andrew Hammond as his partner in Iowa, was sort of an understudy of sorts. Andrew Hammond moved on to the Rochester Americans this season, so that freed up that net for Kähkönen to take over as a full-time number 1, and he ran with the opportunity. Iowa was, as much as they were a real juggernaut offensively, he was a force back there in net. And as with any situation, with any club, when you have that kind of safety valve in net, it really allows your forwards, your talented players up front, a guy like Brendan Manel in the blue line who can move the puck and play with a little bit of risk in his game, allows every one of them to do that, knowing that they have somebody back there in case there is a breakdown. So Kähkönen was my pick, a pretty straightforward pick. I think especially after Igor Shesterkin moved up to New York full-time in January, that kind of took him out of the running, and really just cleared the field. I also gave a lot of consideration to Connor Ingram with the Milwaukee Admirals. What a story there. Also 23 years old. Dumped last year, let's be honest, by the Tampa Bay Lightning for a 7th-round pick. You've really fallen out of favor there. Nashville picks him up, and to his full credit and to Nashville's credit, they made that relationship work. He got himself a new 3-year deal this past March, and I think at some point you'll see him in Nashville, in their goaltending mix. And what a history that Milwaukee-Nashville partnership has in net. I mean, you look at the guys who come through there: Pecorine, Jussi Saros, Chris Mason came back way back when. So really impressive goaltending pipeline. I think Connor Ingram could be the next name in that group as well.
And we'll finish off on the blue line with Jake Bean as the league's outstanding defender, a 2-time World Junior representative for Canada. Got into a couple of games with the Carolina Hurricanes last season, but did not make an NHL appearance this year. But that doesn't matter. 48 points in 59 games, and just continues, I think, to really grow and mature as a young defenseman in pro hockey.
Yeah, I mean, this for me was the easiest pick of all. He was the runaway winner in my book. Just one of those guys, you see him there, and he maybe needed not even a month his rookie season last year to really acclimate himself to the pro game. Immediately came in, plays with composure, confidence. He's a smart player. He didn't have that many holes in his game to start with, but he worked last season with Mike Vellucci, this season with Ryan Warsofsky, the new head coach. He's already been through a playoff run last season, won the Cup. And then I think maybe even more impressively, came in this year. Charlotte had a lot of issues early on. He was one of the few returnees to that club, and he really put that team on its back, along with Valch and Nedeljkovic and a few other players early on in the year till they were able to solidify some issues. And by the end of the year, when the season was suspended in March, they were firmly in a playoff spot, and that was a huge testament to what he was able to do. Excellent on the power play. Charlotte's PK was top-notch, number 1 in the league. He's a part of that as well. So, I mean, he's a first-round pick. He was already on the fast track, but I think even more so now. I think he's done with the American League for now, and I think you'll see him in the NHL full-time next season.
Yeah, it would not be a surprise if he comes out of this shortened season and makes the jump to the NHL. Jake Bean, the Defenseman of the Year in the American Hockey League. Again, we're waiting on the MVP and the Rookie of the Year awards to be handed out. We expect those to be done by the end of the week, but we didn't want to hold off on putting out this episode of Around the A, so we'll recap those awards and maybe, if we can, get a hold of those award winners coming up on episode 23 next week. Few minutes here still to chat before we get to Larry Landon and the NHL announcing its return to play this week, and a lot of eyes on Gary Bettman's announcement earlier on in the week. Again, it's going to work out, if you haven't heard, which I'm sure you have, to a 24-team expanded playoff scenario. Essentially, the top 4 teams in each conference based on winning percentage will play a round-robin for seeding. The rest of the teams that get in will play a best-of-5 series to essentially set the first-round matchups. Coming up a bit later in the show, we're going to do a what-if the AHL had taken the same stance and maybe put some predictions together. We want to get some fan engagement as well on that coming up later on. But how much of an impact is this going to have, Pat, on American Hockey League guys? Obviously, for the teams that didn't make the playoffs, their guys can kind of now reset and refocus and kind of officially start their offseason. But we know teams are going to be able to carry 28 players and unlimited goaltenders into this extended playoff format in the NHL. So what kind of trickle-down do you see that having on the AHL?
Yeah, it's a really interesting case because you almost have to break it down into 2 groups of players. Players that are going to play on those taxi squads, and the players that are going home officially for the summer and staying home and don't really know when they're going to play again. And I've talked to a few different coaches and players across the league, and it's been a concern for a number of them. How do you manage your training, both in terms of if you're selected for that taxi squad? Now you kind of have to hit the ground running, but in many cases, players still don't have access to facilities quite yet. They've been off the ice for 2.5 months. So there's that issue for them. And then there's the other issue for players who, you take like a Matt Molson from the Hershey Bears. He wants to come back next season, but he doesn't know when the season's going to start. I mean, how do you map out a training program if you're him? You don't want to train kind of without a break for months on end. And other players like who are still trying to physically mature, they have to figure out how they manage their training. So for clubs and coaches and players, it's been a little bit of an issue having to figure out their training program on both ends. And I think the thing with that is there's no blueprint here. There's nothing to go on past precedent. So it's a little bit of trial by error. But if and when the NHL actually does resume play, and that's assuming there are no other health issues that interrupt that, I'm not sure what to expect because players will have been off the ice for months at that point, and not really getting their customary training. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. But I think for a lot of players, this is an opportunity to really show their stuff in front of NHL management on a day-to-day basis, in that playoff tournament. And you never know. This could be your big break. And, a few different players have mentioned that they need to be ready because, as much as you can do down in the American League, there's no real replacement for doing it up top and having that day-to-day interaction with NHL management and coaches. So it's another wrinkle in what's already been an extremely strange, unusual year.
Yeah, and a good chance, I think, for some guys to show, their preparation skills, their dedication to the craft, while they've been off the ice for the last couple of months. If you can come back and you are one of the lucky AHL guys that gets that tap on the shoulder, gets that call to be part of these, expanded playoff teams in the NHL, and you show up and show you're ready, that can, pay off huge, I would think, in the eyes of coaches and management. So it's going to be real interesting to see how that shakes down. Again, camps won't open until, at least early June. At least early July. They're still waiting for the okay in a lot of markets for players to be able to, like you said, get back into training facilities and things like that. So we're looking early July that training camp would open, and then things will go from there. Again, coming up in a little bit, we're going to talk about what if the AHL took the same path and decided to restart play with an expanded playoff format. And we've got some ways that we'd like you to get involved in that as well, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. But first, time for a bit of an in-depth discussion on how COVID-19 is affecting players, not just in this league, Pat, but in the ECHL as well. We're going to talk with Larry Landon here from the Professional Hockey Players Association, who is, just a real good source of information as to how players and the union are dealing with this.
Yeah, he is, and I think the difference with Larry from other people we'll speak to is that he works for the players. He doesn't work for a club. He doesn't work for a league. So he has that freedom and that wherewithal to speak much more freely, I guess you would put it. And Larry is he's a straight shooter. He's an interesting case in the sense that he was a player almost 40 years ago in this league, who went into the Players Association business after his playing days, and he's been in that position since 1993. He's seen the AHL right alongside Dave Andrews. He's seen that evolution and that change. He's a guy that he's well known for being very fierce, defending his players and members, and certainly his work is cut out for him now. And there's that that give and take in any sort of labor relationship where you want to work for the common good with the people on the other side of the table, but you also have to look out for your own membership. So he's a real interesting guy, and I think our fans will really get different insights on the hockey business and the current situation from somebody with a much different perspective.
Larry Landon, the head of the Professional Hockey Players Association, joins us next on episode 22 of Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network. Larry, really appreciate this. Thanks for taking some time. I know it's been pretty hectic, to say the least.
No, I appreciate being on, guys. It is trying times, and I think the thing you probably heard more than anything in the past 2 months is there's a lot more questions than answers. Yeah. And despite the fact that Dave Andrews and I have been adversaries since 1993, a ton of experience dealing with each other, this isn't something you prepare for. This is something that you really have to try and work and navigate through it so we come to the other side in a better position.
Yeah, it's all in the best interest of both the players and the league, and that cooperation's obviously needed at a time like this. Let's go back to March 12th and kind of when this whole thing began, and there started to be talk about potentially having to pause the season and things like that. How did this situation evolve from the association standpoint, and what's life been like for the past couple months?
Well, it was a difficult, I want to say 72 hours, maybe greater than that, as things started to materialize and the NBA went and shut down or paused. The NHL paused, the AHL paused, the ECHL actually ended the season, which put those players in real tough positions. So we're scrambling to get exit physicals, scrambling to get the guys out of town. And even back then, thinking back, I don't think any of us thought it was as bad as it is today. Mm-hmm. The way it took off. I tell people, you're always, you can remember where you were at a special time. I was a captain at an RPI hockey team in Troy, New York. I was in Lake Placid in 1980 when the U.S. won the gold medal. I was at the game, never forget it. Well, this year, we're landing in Ontario, California for the AHL All-Star Classic, and we're coming through heavy clouds. You can see the cell towers above it, and we land on the ground and cell phones start to light up. Kobe's helicopter had crashed 10 minutes before we landed. Mm-hmm. By the time we get to the terminal, people are talking this coronavirus and Wuhan, China, and bat soup and all these presumptive cases. And all of a sudden you're thinking that's January 26th or 27th. And where we are today is just incredible. Yeah,
there's obviously been a lot going on. What preparations, I suppose, does the Players Union or the association make when the idea or the thought of canceling a season at such a crucial point of it as well. What sort of preparations do you guys start making to be ready for that should the call come? And then what's been the reaction over the last week or so since that decision was made?
Well, I think the inevitable happened with the AHL. Dave and I have been in constant contact with each other. The last week to 10 days has included his successor, Scott Housen, just as we try and plan ahead. But again, there's a lot more questions there are answers. But I think what we've done is we've included the executive committee. We have a tremendous leadership group on both sides, the AHL players and the ECHL players. Ask them that irrespective of what their plans are for next season, playing or not playing, retiring, moving on to the next phase of their life, we want them to stay involved. Their experience is what this is going to get. It's going to help get us out of this. And that's been an important aspect of the past 2 weeks, talking to the player executive committee, talking to the leagues, trying to get a sense of where they're modeling, where they're going with this. And again, I think I said it last week too on a couple of interviews, is that there's no disrespect. The NHL and the NHLPA are the animal. Let's say it's a dog. And when its tail wags, it's going to affect the American Hockey League, the ECHL, and the PHBA. So all we can do is plan as best we can, knowing that we're going in this with blinders on, but we'll have plans in place, whether the league starts in October, November, December. The unfortunate thing is I got to believe Europe's going to dry up a bit for jobs. I think this is going to displace a number of professional hockey players that have aspired their whole lives and trained and committed to get to this level. And it could very well be lack of jobs as we go forward. That's something I hope doesn't transpire, but I'm a realist and see what's going on right now. It certainly concerns me.
Larry, as the past 2 months have unfolded and the dust has started to settle at least slightly, what are concerns that you've started to hear more and more from some of your player membership, both currently and looking forward several months ahead or a year from now?
Well, there's a couple of things we see happening. We have what's called a career enhancement program that typically it's a program that prepares players for life after hockey, get ready while you're playing for the inevitable, get ready for the next phase. Typically, you'd see 40 to 50 guys a year. I think that number right now in the past month and a half is 190. We've seen more AHL players jump into this than we had in the past, so they're somewhat concerned. I think I have a daughter that's a doctor of psychology. The mental health upon everybody is just grueling. And I think on the hockey player wondering what his future holds, that's even more difficult. So I think the questions that we've been receiving from agents and players the past 7 days has been, listen, when do we get some sense of confidence that teams are going to sign us? When are they going to be confident enough to sign us? And that's a problem I think management's dealing with right now, and agents are dealing with, and players are dealing with. There's got to be some confidence out there to sign players, knowing that if something were to happen, God forbid, going forward a second wave, where the salaries go, who's obligated to what. And I think those are the things that we have to work out in the next 2, 4, 6 weeks. And there's a whole process. There's the NHL, there's assignment to the AHL, there's assignment to the ECHL. How does that all transpire? How does it interconnect as we go forward? And I think that's what's keeping us up at night right now, figuring out, okay, the what ifs. What if miraculously we have a vaccine? What if the average fan is afraid to go in a building and pay $15 to $20 thinking he's going to get sick coming out of there? Is he going to do it? And without fans, I'm troubled. I don't see the E going without fans. I don't see the A going without fans. So that's all going to play itself out.
You mentioned the fan base. You look around this league, it's so heavily dependent on families, the middle class, working class, and you look at some of the unemployment numbers across both the States and Canada. Obviously, anything that affects the AHL affects your membership. How much of a concern is that for the PHPA?
Well, we've seen it in the past, but not to this extent. We've seen it when gas prices jumped to $4 or $5 a gallon that people just didn't go to a hockey rink. They need to save their money for other things and necessities of life. And I think that may come into play this time around. I don't know when. There will be a new normal. I don't know when that new normal is even going to resemble what we knew going in. And there's chit-chat about that all the time. But until we see something formally in front of us that we can actually get our hands on and make decisions based on fact, not on hearsay or dreaming. We need to have the facts in front of us to make the decisions that go forward. But I honestly believe that the way this has impacted the world, impacted North America, it's going to impact our membership base, no doubt.
You mentioned the player job market, both within the AHL, but certainly over in Europe. Is the sense that you're hearing from players that more players, given the uncertainty over there, will be looking to stay in North America, if possible, for next season?
It could be a decision that they don't have control of. I think during this difficult time, I think if you have a spouse, if you have a family, they're going to be part of this equation a lot more than what we've seen in the past. I think the players are going to look to their families and their network. They're spending more time than ever with them. They're not typical. This isn't part of their schedule, being home with their families in May. So I think some of them are probably getting acclimated to it, but I think the wives will have a pretty strong say in how this unfolds, whether they go to Europe or stay in North America.
We're chatting with Larry Landon, who's been the head of the Professional Hockey Players Association since 1993, getting some insight on what this cancellation of the AHL and ECHL season means to the players. The CBA, I know the new deal was recently finalized. We're a year into it now. Is that at least one less thing to have to worry about given the circumstances right now? Is it nice to have that done?
Well, it's good to have the CBAs in place. We have 3 more years left on our ECHL and 4 years left on the AHL agreement. But as I said at the onset, is you're in a position where dealing with our player reps and our executive, you're pretty much preparing for collective bargaining, even though it's called impact bargaining. And that's just, I think that's a catchphrase right now. The impact of this thing is such that there are provisions in the CBA that are going to have to be looked at. A prominent player agent said it best to me today. He goes, Larry, I just want to know that 3/4 of cookies are a hell of a lot better than no cookie. How do we get these guys a cookie? And that struck me because our players were fortunate. The NHL and the AHL teams paid their salaries right through April 11th. If you're employed by an NHL club, whether you're in the A or the E, you're paid through April 11th. That was pretty neat that they did that for the players, where the ECHL guys were left on their own. And we get that because of the markets and the sensitivity of that league and how tight it is to operate. So if we started a season again, do we obligate the owners to the complete salary because they're kind enough to do it this past season? That's a difficult task. You have teams that may not want to play under that circumstance. So we're dealing with that daily. It's not going to stop. I feel rotten for Dave Andrews. He and I have become friends where, yes, we've been adversaries and probably completed 15 CBAs since 1993 together, but he's had a Hockey Hall of Fame career, and what a bad way to have your last 6 months play out. It's not fun for him. I feel for him as a friend, but the American League's got to be thankful. They got a guy like that that's going to stay around as part of the restart program. Even though he will be retired, he'll be the chairman of the board and work with Scott Housen. And because of that, I think that navigating through these waters would be a lot less difficult, knowing Dave and our experience and relationship is there, along with Scott and his experience in pro hockey.
You mentioned that CBA and the impact bargaining. Are there any areas that you foresee that may be examined in order to help essentially with this recovery plan going forward? And what can the PHPA do to help that?
I think that's a conversation that's going to come up in the future. It hasn't yet. There's some points and some provisions within the standard players contract that we're looking at now that have to be addressed to what we call break the logjam, where the confidence in signing a player isn't there because of the potential unknown obligations and the uncertainties. And from the player's perspective, they want some confidence that they're going to have a contract. And it remains to be seen how much of that contract we played out. We don't know if there'll be a full season, part season. Do we start in October? Do we start in November? Do we start in December? Again, I've told the players, we don't have calls every week or every 2 weeks with the player reps because sometimes ideas get turned into facts. And the last thing we want to do is start putting rumors out there, innuendo, that's not really favorable to what we're all trying to do, and that's get this thing started. There's nothing we can do to change the direction this pandemic's gone. All we can do is get ready when we hope we're in a position to play the game again.
How much of a concern is commercial air travel? Most of the AHL, to the extent that they travel by air, does it commercially. If you're having players put on flights, going through airports, is that something that's been expressed as a concern?
Well, in March, certainly did. It spiked. Our players, part of the reason we canceled our annual meeting of player reps, which would have been held next month, middle of the month in Orlando, is players and their families made it clear to us they weren't getting on an airplane to fly to Orlando. So that was a couple months ago. People are looking at what's transpiring in the airline industry. You may see geographically more of a busing league. I don't know that, but I'm sure they're in the league office penning all that out. What can we do? How do we make it the safest thing? In every sports league right now, the focus is the player and their family safety. Right now, that's paramount to anything.
Larry, you had mentioned there briefly just about potential for a shortened season. We've heard some chatter about all 31 teams in the American Hockey League potentially not playing, some playing and some not. What type of problems or issues could come up from that? And there's also a lot of talk in some other pro leagues about players taking less money because of shortened seasons. Is that come up at all as a concern?
I think it is. I think everything's on the table right now to get this game back on the ice, let the players play in the game they know and love and apprentice their whole life to play at this level. It's a concern with 19 of the AHL teams owned by NHL teams. I think they have somewhat of an investment to have their prospects playing. When we get Palm Spring in with Seattle, we're going to have 20 of the 32 owned by NHL teams. So I think between the NHL and the AHL, they're going to try and find a way that they put a season together. But again, it's all dependent on where we are 3 to 6 months from now, 3 to 5 months from now. It's player safety. And if this thing comes up and creates another wave, it's going to be problematic for everybody.
Speaking of player safety, and I know a lot of the details aren't necessarily out or finalized yet, but has there been much feedback from any of the players as far as what they feel about the proposed social distancing rules and what changes could come to the game on the ice because of all this?
Not really. I think they're talking in clusters right now. A lot of chat lines amongst the players of what they can expect, what they feel may happen. You're hearing the full face shields, and I was joking today saying everybody in hockey have to use a Chara hockey stick to be far enough away from the other players. So, and that's not meant to be disrespect for Chara or the game, but there will be changes, there's no doubt. I mean, data and medicine is going to drive a lot of these decisions now, and our game will probably change. It won't come out of this the same way it went in, I don't think, and I've been involved with the American Hockey as a player since '81. And on bargaining committee since '81. So, and with all those years' experience, I'm thinking I can't see this coming out like we went in. But I'm trying to stay positive. I hope we start in October. I hope the ECHL can start in October. If the NHL starts to play and their season goes into November, obviously that's all going to change. But again, we're going to have to see what the NHL does and react to it. And the reaction won't be a knee-jerk. It'll be models that are laid out in anticipation. If this happens, Plan A comes into place. If this happens, Plan B comes into place. And that could change as well based on the pandemic.
I mean, you mentioned, waiting on the NHL is kind of the nature of the beast for your group. Is it difficult to kind of be in that follower situation, if you will, and not really have much control?
I would say not. I think one of the things that I've come to realize is that between Gary Bettman and his people and Don Fear and his people, they're custodians of the hockey, the game hockey, whether it be internationally or North America. And to an extent, a filter down is to myself, Dave, Ryan Creelan, Scott Housen. We're custodians of the game. If the game isn't healthy, your owners aren't healthy, the players aren't healthy. They're not seeing the prosper they'd want. So we got to make sure it's done right. But the NHL, they're custodians. They're going to do what they have to do to get this game back, and they're going to do it the best they can. And we have to follow suit once we see that develop.
How would you characterize the past CBA negotiations? Obviously, I've been through several of them with Dave. What's the evolution been like from the first time you did it back in the 90s until now?
Well, the first couple of CBAs Dave Andrews and I did together, we were probably talking to lawyers in the National Relations Board more than we were talking to our own wives. And it wasn't until I'll never forget the date. We were on Wolf Road in Albany, New York, locked in a hotel room, and he wants to go to his lawyer. I want to call my lawyer. And we got to the point where he said, why? This is minor league hockey. We want it to be as professional as possible. Let's try and work through it. Common sense. Dave, you're a hockey guy. I'm a hockey guy. We're neither of us are lawyers. Let's just sit and talk and do what's best for the players, the league, the owners, and the fans. And that started a relationship that's flourished over the years. And have we disagreed at times? Yeah. Have we got upset at each other? Yeah. But at the end of the day, I trust what Dave's going to say to me, and he trusts what I'm going to say to him. And there's no bullshitting going along the way. It's factual. Everything that we want to deal with is in front of us. It's not we're making stuff up along the way.
When you're sitting across the table from him, what's he like as a negotiator? What's his personality like? We obviously know what he's like publicly, but kind of more behind the scenes.
Well, Dave's always very well prepared. He thinks the game. He strategizes. The last negotiations were great, and I think that the people on the other side would say the same thing as I would say. We had an incredible, in my career, probably the best group of players on our executive committee that I could imagine. Nathan Pache and Cameron Gauntz, Chris Breen and Brett Sutter, Vince Laverty, Dylan Simpson. But on their side, they had Julian Brisbois from Tampa, Kyle Dubas from Toronto, and the rest of Dave and his crew. And it was pretty incredible witnessing how the players with that level of experience and leadership engage with NHL GMs or assistant GMs who were in that room. And the trust that developed in that environment was pretty special. It wasn't anybody trying to beat anybody up or get the best of the other. It was, okay, how can we deal with this? You want to get to that point? We want to get to this point. How are we going to get there both together in some way, shape, or form? So, and that's the way it's always been. I think, yeah, there's been fights. The development rule was tough at the start. There's things that at some points we disagree on as far as suspensions and that. But at the end of the day, trust and experience pulls everybody through it.
What will his departure mean for the PHPA and your membership? And what does the arrival of Scott Halson mean for the league as well as for the membership?
Well, I've dealt with Scott in the past. I know him, I respect him. I've been going to Hilton Head for a lot of years when Scott was a GM or assistant GM in Hilton Head and ran the competition committee for the American Hockey League. So I've dealt with Scott. So he's coming in. We have a relationship in the past few weeks where Dave and he are on a call with myself. The relationship is building. Obviously, what Dave has accomplished, as I said earlier, is a Hockey Hall of Fame career. He'll be missed, but the good thing from our perspective is that he's going to be the chairman of the board. He's going to be involved in decisions and how they impact the game, knowing full well that he's going to want to have Scott take the reins and run with it. Dave will be in the background, offering experience and guidance on the way. So until such time as Dave says, I'm leaving for good, there's still a continuity factor there that will help us all through. And right now we need that.
Let's go to a little bit of your background, perhaps, here, Larry. We're chatting with Larry Landon, who heads up the Professional Hockey Players Association, the union representing the players in the AHL, the ECHL. You mentioned you played in the AHL. You got involved with this association in the early 80s and then took over in the early 90s. What motivated you to get involved in I guess, player affairs and in this? And what did you learn from your time as a player involved in these sorts of things that's perhaps helped you now as the longtime head of the organization?
Well, it's funny. I tell people that will listen that as a kid growing up, my dad was the president of a local union for 17 years. And myself and brothers and sisters, we despised the union. Yeah, put food on our table, but every supper, my dad was on the phone dealing with the shop steward or somebody from management, pulling out his little CB in his pocket saying, check page 15, paragraph 6, that word number 7, we got you. And I'm thinking, what the heck makes him tick? Then when I was afforded the opportunity to go on a hockey scholarship to the States, I thought, I'm going to take management. And while I'm there, I'm going to take some personnel management, labor law, just to get a sense of what the heck was my dad thinking, doing what he did, helping other people out. And got there, took it, thinking it'd never, ever come into play. I turned pro under the coaching of a guy named John Brophy. And one day I went into the rink early, and he was really, really critical of all the players. I was captain at RPI. I was able to take the coach's brunt, and the players would sort of follow my lead, understand that if I'm getting shit on and I'm working my ass off, they got to work their ass off. Well, Brof was somewhat like that, and I sensed that as a rookie. I remember walking in, and he was hitting a speed bag, and I was there at 7:30 in the morning. And he looks at me and says, "What are you doing here, kid?" I said, "Well, I'm going to hit the speed bag." And I pretend to go on to hit a speed bag. I had no idea it hit my face more, it hit my wrist. And he says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, bro, listen, I haven't unpacked my bags. I'm a rookie. And we're on a losing skid. And all I hear is negative condensation. You're just all over the players. There's guys that it's impacting in a real negative way. We'll never gel as a team. It's early in the year. You got to give some positive reinforcement. This isn't right. This isn't the experience I expected in pro hockey. So do me a favor. If you want to tell me to F off and leave right now, pack, and I'm out of here, I get it. But you got to help these young kids through this right now. And there's some sensitive guys in this team that have to be pampered. There's other guys you can give some tough love to. But right now, we need your help because we're in a losing skid." And he turned red with that white hair and screamed at me, kicked me out of the room, and "I'll see you on the ice in an hour." And I got on the ice, and I could have drank sand. I was so nervous, thinking, okay, he's going to bag skate me. But at the end of that session, I didn't know there was a union. I did not know the American Hockey had a players' union. At the end of the practice, Brof comes in the room and says, "Guys, listen, you guys have a Players Association of Portland, Oregon, the PHPA. Kurt Leichner that runs it is coming in today with your insurance guy, and you guys have a weak union. I wish I had a union when I played in the Eastern Hockey League, but you don't. And if you're ever going to make this union something special, you need somebody special." And there's a young kid in this room that stood up to me today, and he didn't have his own interests at heart at all. That's the kind of guy you want as part of this union. So for that reason, I think you guys should make Larry Landon your player up. Carbonell and those guys jump up. "Yeah, you're the player up." Next thing I got my head shaved, my eyebrows are shaved. I got initiated. But I became the player up, and it's been a great run. There's a lot of great people in our sport, management or not. I've met a lot of great players along the way. I'm pretty fortunate to have been involved as long as I have. And I think at the end, it's because I love the game. I love the players. You know, I have 3 children, but I tell people I have like 1,503 children. So, and you have to care about them. You have to understand what they go through. And fortunately, although the game's changed, I went through a lot of what they're going through. And you do the best you can to navigate them through it.
Well, and what are perhaps some of those things that that minor league players, might have to deal with that the guys who are established in the NHL don't? And how have you seen that kind of player's lifestyle change over the last 20-ish years?
Well, when we played, I remember Ted Nolan and I negotiating per diem for an extra $1 or $2 at $12 a day per diem, and Lou Nanny throwing an ashtray at us, thinking, "What are you kids asking for?" But nowadays with the per diem at $60 or $70 or $78 a day in the A and $46 in the E, I think our biggest issue is the young guys coming in, that it's now a full-time job. There's big money at stake. If you can make that jump to the National Hockey, you're more focused now on trying to get there. If you're in the E, you're more focused at trying to get to the A. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The camaraderie is awesome. But in the E, where these kids live paycheck to paycheck, it wrenches your heart when a guy has an issue where his travel home money isn't paid on time, or he's had surgery, he's not getting workers' comp, he can't work in the summer, but he's entitled to workers' comp. You got to break that logjam and get that money in that player's hands. We started this ECHL COVID-19 Player Relief Fund to give the players some money that they missed on their last 3 paychecks. And I had our staff reach out to all 432 players personally, first of all, to ask how their family was doing. Second, to make sure we had the right address on file to send them the check. And I'm glad we did it, because there's probably 30 to 40% of the guys that never made it to their summer homes. They decided to hunker down wherever they were. And some players on those calls were crying. "I got a baby. I need to get food." "Okay, where are you? We're going to courier the money to you." Kid in Sweden was in tough array. We wired him, transferred the money by wire. Those are the things that, as a leader and really as a parent, you start to take to heart and say, "You know what? these kids are going through hell, and all we can do is our best to make tomorrow a better day for them.
When you think about when you started as a player almost 40 years ago, what was the general league experience like? And then when you came into this position back in '93, what were some of the early issues or problems that you really needed to address right off the bat?
Well, a lot of it was safety. A lot of it, I remember going to Rochester, walking up cement stairs to get to the ice surface, or jumping in an elevator with hard pavement and stuff to Baltimore to the rink. We had to get rubberized flooring in the dressing rooms, or carpeted. Little things like that you take for granted today. The training room area, the way players traveled, and the way they got reimbursed. That's all changed now. It's a big investment. The NHL knows they need the development feeder systems to really enhance their prospects, let them experience what pro hockey is, make that experience a good experience, not to drive your prospects away. And I think the American Hockey League and the NHL teams over the years have realized the value of leadership. And I mentioned it on our negotiating committee, but all teams have that leadership group that are helping, and they're really coaches. They're helping the coach. They don't have the title of coach, but they're helping the coaches develop these young men into professional hockey players to play at the National Hockey League. And with the salary cap, they need it, and that's the biggest change in the game.
One of the biggest issues in this league is a league in which most players are trying to get out of it. So how much of an issue is it to get player involvement? And then what are the more pressing concerns for players today, having already fought many of the bigger battles through the past 25 years?
I think they did just communication. Social media is such a big thing. Keeping guys and understanding and having the players understand that you hit the send button or you're in a bad position. I mean, there's cameras on phones now. If there was cameras on phones in my plate, it would have been gone in 24 hours. So it's a scary thought what can happen to a player in the wrong situation in today's game. So that could be our biggest challenge right now is keeping the guys educated on the do's and don'ts of social media. I mean, everyone wants to go out there and brand themselves, and we encourage them. Brand yourself while you're playing. You may not become a National Hockey League player, but in the market you're in, you're truly a celebrity. Brand yourself while you're playing and set yourself up after.
Listening to Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network and wherever else you get your podcasts. Find us on Twitter at Around the A Pod. Nice little clickable link there where you can find all of our past episodes and tune in to hear what all of our past guests had to say. We've had some good ones on over the course of the last 22 episodes, so it's all there for your listening pleasure. Thanks to Larry Landon for his time and filling us in. I knew he'd be a different interview, as you had said there before we got into it, Pat. Pretty loose guy, considering he's the head of the Players Association.
Yeah, Larry doesn't have much of a filter, which is great. I think we need more people like that. Both in hockey and just in general media as a whole. I thought he was excellent. He really laid it out there, put out what his concerns are for his membership. He's mindful of what the league needs, but in the end, he works for the players, and I think he made that very clear. So I thought we learned a lot from Larry, and really everybody's feeling their way through this whole situation kind of on a day-by-day basis, and really appreciated him being honest with us and letting us know that he doesn't have all the answers at this point, but you never got the sense that he was holding back information or not showing his cards. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, real forthright guy, and we thank him again for his time and apologize for the slight technical difficulties we encountered. That's why we kind of had to fade out unceremoniously, but a great interview, and I'm sure we'll try to check in with Larry again as this whole situation evolves a little bit. In a little while, we're going to catch up with Kyle Mace from Chocolate Hockey, covering the Hershey Bears. they've got an interesting telethon coming up involving some players from the Hershey Bears and more that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But first, let's put our speculation hats on, Pat, and talk a little bit about what if the American Hockey League decided to follow suit with the NHL, which a lot of people thought they might do, but the AHL pulling the plug on the season a couple weeks before the NHL announced its plans. But what if the AHL took the same approach? 24 teams getting into an expanded playoffs, and how might that look? If you were to break it down, again, the top 4 teams in each conference would essentially earn buys into the playoffs, but would play a round-robin format against each other to determine seeding for the first round, and the remaining 8 teams would face off against each other in best-of-5 series to get into the playoffs officially, and would be lined up against those top 4 teams based on seeding. If we start with the Eastern Conference, the top 4 teams in no specific order: Providence, Hershey, Belleville, and Rochester. And then in a more specific order, Utica would play Wilkes-Barre, Charlotte would play Springfield, Hartford would play Laval, and Binghamton would play Syracuse. A lot of teams in that group, Pat, that were right on the AHL playoff bubble if the season had finished in a normal sense, and if it had happened, could have made for some pretty interesting matchups.
Yeah, the first one I look at right there is you could have had a Hershey-Belleville matchup in the first round, or I guess the round-robin round, if you want to call it. That would have been a lot of fun. Former Hershey coach Troy Mann now running the show in Belleville, and then a real clash of 2 different teams. Belleville, obviously, a really high-octane offensive club that can really kind of run you off the ice if you're not ready. And then Hershey, a real well-balanced team, very well-structured, deep goaltending, and just a club that plays its systems exceptionally well under Spencer Carberry. So that could have been a really fun matchup, that first round, or whatever you want to call that play-in round, or I should say that round robin. So, and then you look out west, you would have had Milwaukee, Colorado, perhaps. The 2 of them, they had a 2-game series back in October, featuring several fights. AJ Greer left the penalty box, got himself a 6-game suspension. So 2 real feisty clubs at times, and that was really before Milwaukee had completely gotten themselves on track. So Iowa, Tucson would be fun. A similar situation where you have that real deep attack with Iowa against a much more balanced club like Tucson. I think that could have been a lot of fun in each of those top 4 groupings.
Yeah, and again, for the Western Conference, the top 4 would have been Milwaukee, Iowa, Tucson, Colorado, and the other matchups would have been Stockton, San Antonio, San Diego, Texas, Ontario, Rockford, and Grand Rapids in Chicago. And since this is all hypothetical, wouldn't that have been a scene for San Antonio Rampage, who in their last season in that market would take that final spot, that 12th spot, and get into a play-in series against a team like Stockton? And what if they had put a surprise together and managed to go on a run? There could be, or could have been, I suppose, some really incredible stories come out of this if the AHL had decided to go the same route.
Yeah, that would have been one of the nicest things of all. San Antonio fans to get a proper goodbye, get to see playoff hockey. They only saw that 4 times in 18 seasons. It was not something that they were accustomed to, despite excellent support down there. So that would have been a lot of fun to see them kind of get their hurrah. Maybe they could have gone on a run. I think the one thing we know with the American League playoffs, it's so unpredictable simply because you have players coming and going. You have players coming in from junior, coming in from college at the end of the year. So things can change fairly dramatically. And I think that would have been a fun matchup. The other thing I like is that you have a mix of rivalries in there, but you also have some random matchups. You have an Ontario versus Rockford, 2 clubs that don't see each other very often. I think that would have been neat. And, you have Laval and Hartford who are not regular opponents. So I think that would have been fun, but then you still get your Binghamton, Syracuse, your Grand Rapids versus Chicago. So you kind of get the best of both worlds there and get a little bit more variety. At times, the American League playoffs, because it is a divisional format, the playoff matchups, there's only so much variety that's possible. So this would be a neat little go around to see some different playoff matchups. It's one of the things that I like most about the American League playoffs. That's deep into the obviously in the final, you get teams that don't see each other very much, if at all, and it allows just for a lot of variety and just answer some of those what if questions. So this would have been a fun exercise. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be, but it is fun to look at it and see what could have been.
Yeah, and we want some help from you, the listeners, on this. A lot of people have been playing, NHL 20 simulations to see how the season might finish. We're going to put up a series of Twitter polls on our Twitter account at Around the A Pod, and essentially we want you to vote for who you think would win each of these matchups, and we'll try to maybe determine a hypothetical Calder Cup champion based on this what if the AHL took the 24-team expanded playoff format. For the top 4 teams, we're just going to ask you who you think would finish first in that group, and then we will seed those top 4 teams based on the amount of votes they get. The rest of the matchups are pretty straightforward. Vote for who you think will win, and whoever gets the most votes will. And we'll update you next week on how that's going. Just something to keep us busy here during this extended off season in the American Hockey League. So stay tuned to us on Twitter at Around the A Pod for that, and don't forget to follow us there and tell your friends as well. The more people that get involved in that, the better the results will be. So that'll be something fun. Speaking of something fun, Pat, it's coming up tonight, just after this show aired. Again, there was a few things happening that we didn't want to wait for to get the show recorded, but the Vegas AHL team will announce its identity essentially tonight at I think 7 or 7:30 Vegas time with what I'm going to call a spectacular, an hour-long TV program. They're calling it Reveal Night, with a K, of course, and they're going to let us know what the name and the logo of the AHL franchise in Vegas is going to be.
Yeah, I think we're getting an early taste of what this new franchise is going to be like. This isn't going to necessarily be your standard American League franchise that, let's be honest, this league, for a lot of reasons, does things a little bit more on a low-key basis. Well, it's Las Vegas. There's nothing low-key about that city to start with. That franchise, ever since they came in back in 2017, there's nothing low-key about them. Their game presentation, obviously their on-ice success, reaching the Stanley Cup final in their first season. I mean, everything there has been kind of upside down. And now they have their own American League affiliate that will play 2 seasons in Las Vegas before they move to suburban Henderson, a brand new $80 million plus arena. In 2022, and fittingly, I think they're starting off with quite the bang here with their team announcement of their name. I'd be interested to know what name you would like, and sort of what theme you think they may go with.
Well, there's so many options, right? I've had one, and you had come up with it as well, that a few people have kind of floated to me. It seems pretty much bang on the nose. I'll let you mention that one. I was kind of thinking, go with something showy, related to the shows in Vegas, magicians or the old minor league ball team there used to be the 51s, Las Vegas 51s, I think, and they had a wicked alien logo. They're now the Aces, I believe they changed their name. There's so many ways you could go with it out in Vegas, but a lot of the people that I've spoken to about it that have ideas, and you had said as well, something that's maybe a little bit more close to the NHL identity.
Yeah, Silver Knights has been a name that's been bandied about quite a bit. It sort of fits in the sense that the NHL club is the Golden Knights, therefore the AHL club the Silver Knights. There's a lot of different possibilities you can do. You can work in that silver color scheme, probably still keep a little bit of gold and black. And I think what we know for sure is they're going to do a really top-notch job. I mean, this team really from the start's been a marketing juggernaut. I mean, you name it, they've figured out a way to do it in ways that really the hockey world never had seen before leading up to this. I mean, I was always of the belief that there was something of a market for hockey in a place like Las Vegas. Obviously, it's been successful in other similar Sunbelt markets, but I mean, what they've been able to do since they came in. I mean, I think back to this past spring when Alec Martinez, he came over from the LA Kings, and he gets off the plane at the Las Vegas airport and walks down the steps, and there's a whole crowd of cheerleaders from the team there to greet him and this big event, and it's put out all over social media. I mean, you just don't see that, right? I mean, anywhere in the NHL, really. I mean, even in your more intense markets. So I think what they've been able to do there is they know the market. They understand that you have to put on a show. Mike McKenna, our guest in a previous episode, has mentioned that as well. That's if you want to stand out in a place like Las Vegas, you can't kind of do the standard approach. And I think that would probably go double for an American Hockey League team that's trying to make a name for itself. And, this is pretty impressive what they're going to do with this naming event. It's going to be all over their social media, on television in the Las Vegas markets. And between the marketing know-how and the money behind this club, I think it's going to be a real success when all's said and done.
And if they do go with Silver Knights, the possibilities are endless. Let's not forget that the Raiders of the NFL are moving to Vegas as well, and there are training facilities going to be in Henderson. And what are the colors of the Raiders? Black and silver. So there's a lot, I think, that they could tie in with their new neighbors, if you will, and it makes the most sense to me. So we don't know for sure that's what it's going to be, but we have some sneaking suspicions that's what it might be. And then, the logo, do they just change the colors on the Vegas helmet? Do they use the same helmet motif but put an H in the face somehow? It's also very similar, I noticed the other day, to the Tennessee Titans logo. It's kind of the same thing, the helmet with a T in the front. So do they go with that? Do they go off the map and do something different? I can't wait to find out. 7 p.m. Vegas time, so around 10 o'clock in the Eastern time zone, if that's where you are. You can tune in on the Golden Knights YouTube page or Facebook or Twitch or Twitter. And again, as we'd mentioned, an hour-long program on TV in the Vegas area, which is just a massive thing, I think, for any AHL club to get that kind of exposure and backed so strongly by the NHL parent.
Yeah, I mean, especially, you're in an NHL market, like you said, the NFL's coming there. There's obviously all sorts of variety of sports. I mean, right now, clearly it's a different time in the entertainment world, but to get their name out there early and often, I think is a real solid first step for that team. We both know how much Vegas Golden Knights, how much they wanted the club in that market, both for hockey purposes, but also for marketing, and they got it. It cost them a pretty penny getting that club to come over from San Antonio, and they're sparing no expense. I mean, it's really impressive. It's interesting just to think of the possible logo approach they may take, and if I know you with jerseys, I don't think it'll be too long before you're purchasing a Henderson AHL club jersey. I think it'll be a sharp look for sure.
I will be all over that as soon as it's. I mean, you can't mess with black and silver, man. It's a classic color combo, and really looking forward to seeing what they do. Assuming they go with black and silver, we don't know anything. We're just taking our best guess at logically what it could be. So that's coming up on Thursday night, 7 p.m. Vegas time, 10 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go from one of the newest franchises to one of the oldest and talk to Kyle Mace, who covers the Hershey Bears, in just a couple minutes. But before we do that, Pat, any update on the affiliations for Charlotte and Chicago before we get to Kyle?
Last I checked earlier this week, status quo. Make of that what you will. It's a little strange now. Granted, NHL clubs have been pretty busy the past couple of weeks with the return to play initiative and everything that comes with that. But I do think within the next week or two, we should have a formal announcement from both the Charlotte Checkers and the Chicago Wolves as to what their plans are. Those are the two clubs still in need of an affiliation. Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers are the two NHL clubs. So you have four people at the table, and they somehow have to pair off. We'll see whether or not there's a new pairing, or whether Charlotte, Caroline can somehow patch it up. It's not looking good so far, but this league, we know stranger things have happened. So we'll have to really keep a close eye on that and see how that one breaks down.
And, of course, as soon as there is news, we will have it here for you on Around the A. A big part of the American Hockey League is community involvement. And we talked to Mike McKenna last week about the new Henderson team kind of entrenching itself in that community and how important it's going to be for players to get out and make themselves known and support community causes. And markets across the AHL see that on a weekly basis in some spots throughout the course of the season. While hockey is over for AHL players, there's an initiative coming up next week in Hershey. Kyle Mace, who runs the website Chocolate Hockey, is going to be co-hosting a special telethon with Bears forward Liam O'Brien, and we're going to chat with him next about that initiative, what it's supporting, and how you can get involved as well. We'll hear from Kyle, and then we'll be back to wrap up episode 22 of Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network. Episode 22 of Around the A continues with David Foote and Patrick Williams on the Sports Podcasting Network. Thanks again to Larry Landon for his time earlier on talking about how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting players in this league and beyond. Now time to talk a little bit about how it's affecting one specific community in the American Hockey League, but many across this league and beyond that as well. Kyle Mace is on with us. He runs Chocolate Hockey, covering the Hershey Bears, and has come up with this idea to help raise some money for Cocoa Packs, which is a weekly program in the Hershey area that provides food assistance for students in need and their families. Kyle, thanks for doing this, man. How you been?
Good, and thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a real unique, I think, idea, and we were just talking off air a little bit about what you have planned. It seems like quite the undertaking. How did the idea come about, and what's gone into the planning for the event so far? We should mention that it is next week, June 4th at 7 p.m. on YouTube.
Yes, so Hungry to Help is going to be a virtual online telethon that Chocolate Hockey is going to host alongside Hershey Bears forward Liam O'Brien. And this was an idea that was sort of inspired by all the assistance that's needed right now during this pandemic. I saw a bunch of different teams and organizations trying live streams and working with players to engage in the community the ways that they do normally during the season, but now virtually. So the idea of a telethon was presented to me and came about during the week kind of leading up to the announcement of the cancellation of the American Hockey League season. So once that announcement came down, I thought, well, we really got to get into motion here. So I spoke to the people at Cocoa Packs and was told they are in desperate need. You know, this is an organization that feeds so many people in the Hershey community, and they just got 63 new kids and families that they're trying to feed that wasn't in the budget because nobody really knew that this pandemic was going to happen. So after speaking to them and realizing how much need there was, I thought, we got to do something here. So I spoke to Liam. I said, hey, would you be interested in doing a charity live stream here, raising some money for them and helping them out? And he said, absolutely, I'm on board. So since then, we have planned out an hour-long telethon that will air on Chocolate Hockey's YouTube channel, 7 p.m. on Thursday, June 4th. It's going to be including a bunch of Bears players, including Matt Molson, Phoenix Copley, and Riley Sutter. This is going to be an event for hockey fans in general, honestly, to come and join. There's going to be a bunch of information about Cocoa Packs so you can learn about the amazing things they do, but also a bunch of fun segments on the show, anywhere from guys learning new skills. Riley Sutter has learned sign language. Matt Molson has learned oh my gosh, tongue twister there, has learned ballet. Oh my gosh, man, it's been a long day. I'll tell you this has been something that we've been working on for so long. I didn't sleep last night. I was so giddy about this. I've put my heart and soul into this project for the past month, and it has been something that every single day I wake up, I work on. We talk to the people with Cocoa Packs, we talk to the people with Liam and all these people to get this whole thing together. And today, I spent the day at Cocoa Packs' drive-thru where families actually come and get the meals, and I truly was emotionally moved by how amazing this organization is and just the stuff they were doing for these families that are in such need right now. I had this emotion come over me, and I just thought to myself, we have the right organization here. We have the right group that really needs our help right now. So we're going to be taking an hour of our time on Thursday night to help them out.
Kyle, the Bears obviously an institution in Hershey and really across central Pennsylvania, which is a very large market. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what the Cocoa Packs charity does and why it's near and dear to your heart, and why it was such an easy sell to players like Liam O'Brien, Matt Molson, and so on?
So the Cocoa Packs is an organization based actually out of the Hershey Middle School, Derry Township, and the school district there. They have a whole space in Hershey Middle School. And what they do is they provide supplemental food and other support to local children to enhance their overall wellness. Their mission is all about love, and their mission is all about giving kids the tools to succeed. And if one of those things that can take off their mind where they might be struggling to get some clothes and might be struggling to get food, if they can provide that, it's going to make the kids that much more successful in other areas that they can put their focus on and not have to worry about. So I knew about Cocoa Packs, honestly, through the Bears. It's an organization that the players have worked with. They donate their time, they donate their energy, and go and work at the facility they have at Hershey Middle School. So I knew that there was a passion there for this, honestly, from Liam, because he's been organizing events and was doing a fundraiser for them. He actually had a fundraiser planned for the next weekend's games before the games were postponed and then later canceled. And I just thought to myself, if the guys are this passionate about it, there's got to be something here. So the first conversation I had with the Cocoa Packs people was pitching them this idea. I called up Christine Drexler with Cocoa Packs and said to her, hey, are you guys in need right now? Tell me about what's going on. And she said, Kyle, we are struggling. This is something that we weren't prepared for at all. And she said to me that number, 63 new kids, we need to find meals for. And I said, okay, let's get rolling here. And I started looking more in everything they're doing and talking to Liam about it. And it's just a spectacular organization. It comes from her heart. It's an absolutely truly moving group that wants to have such a great impact on the area. She said to me today, they take volunteers from all over the area. They had a volunteer come in from an hour and a half away because they just respected the organization so much and just wanted to help out. So they've really rallied around an amazing group of people to support Hershey in honestly, I feel a topic that sometimes is hard to talk about. People struggling to make ends meet, with food being such a necessity, and even they have a closet there for kids to get clothes. So being able to do that for these families, and I saw a lot of smiles on people's faces, from the people accepting the food to the people volunteering their time and giving the food to this people. It's truly a beautiful organization that I can't wait to help out with this event.
You look at the numbers across the states, 36-something million people unemployed. Obviously, a lot of economic strain right now, financial strain. What sort of impact has the current pandemic had on Cocoa Packs and what they're trying to do, and what are their challenges right now?
So with the idea of them being able to provide supplemental food to these families and get them, in our press release we have here, saying with schools closed, obviously there's a bigger gap on weekends, holidays, the summer for food insecurity. So when people are able to donate, the one thing that we're going to be talking about here is for $415, that covers meals for a kid for a full year. $100 covers the summer. $315 is the school year. So for obviously what you would think maybe for some people is what they spend in a month on groceries would be able to feed a kid for an entire year. So to add now 63 new families during this trying time where, you know, a lot of these families weren't prepared for this. They were living on paycheck to paycheck and still able to make ends meet, but they got to a point now that, you know, obviously we're losing jobs here, and Pennsylvania finally now getting out of its red state and lockdown and moving to these yellow and green phases, as they're called here. It's really tough to see, you know, these people who work so hard and put their heart and soul into, you know, making a better community, struggling to make ends meet. So with Cocoa Packs really trying to take one of those extra burdens off their shoulders, they've almost taken on a burden of themselves, because there's all these extra families now that they're just saying, okay, we have to be able to make sure we're covering these new people that came in, because they need as much help as the people that we already had here. So today, honestly, you wouldn't tell that Cocoa Packs is struggling here and needing donations by the way that they carry themselves. There's all this energy, there's all this love and all this support to these people and these families. So when you go there, they're able to provide that. Now, on what I feel is on our shoulders is providing that love and support to Cocoa Packs.
Chatting with Kyle Mace, who founded ChocolateHockey.com, covering the Hershey Bears, and the upcoming telethon in support of this charity, Cocoa Packs, Thursday, June 4th at 7 p.m. On YouTube. You can get all the info, I'm sure, on Kyle's Twitter, at Kyle Mace. You mentioned Liam O'Brien is helping out as your co-host. You've got a few of the other guys, Caps prospects, Phoenix Copley, Riley Sutter, involved as well. How important is it to have these players step up and be a part of this, and what does it say about their connection to that community, that they're willing to take their time to be a part of it as well?
We had Liam on a call with a couple media members earlier today, and he just said, this truly puts a smile on these guys' face. This is something that, the one comment he made was, to us, even in warm-ups, tossing a fan a puck, you see the smile it puts on somebody's face, and that good feeling that they give somebody else comes back onto them. And being able to give back with their position in the community, as being professional athletes, as being in the public eye, as being somebody that people can look up to in this community, they feel the responsibility of, okay, let's take our position and give back. And, like I said earlier, I pitched this to them feeling like, okay, hey, I got to explain to them, here's why I'm doing it all. And I literally said, what would you think about doing a telethon? Yes, absolutely. That was the conversation I had with Liam about this. They truly go, yeah, no, anything that we can do to help give back to the community. And I think, honestly, that's built on what you have to do in these minor league sports communities where, they're not the same size as a New York or an LA or a Chicago or any of these other major markets. They're tight-knit. You'll see the players in the grocery store. You'll see them at any of these other little locations all around town, and you sort of get to know them on a personal level. And because of that, these players are able to put faces to names, and they're not just Hershey Bears fans. It's, Phil and Bob and all these different people that have season tickets that because you've built relationships. And obviously Liam's been here for 6 seasons, so he really has some of these great relationships. He won Man of the Year for the Bears back in 2016-17. He really understands what Hershey is about and what the people of Hershey need. So when this is presented to them and he took the ideas to these other guys, there was no hesitation on any of their parts, because they understand, their role in the community and how important it is to give back, especially in a time right now.
Carl, Hershey, oldest team in the league, oldest market in the league, a long history really of helping kids in need, really going all the way back to Milton Hershey, who founded the Milton Hershey School way back when. For fans and listeners who aren't familiar with Hershey, could you just describe what the market's like, what it's like for players, what it's like for fans to be in that market?
I think when you think Hershey, obviously people think the chocolate. And honestly, that's really true about the community. It's a factory town. There's a chocolate factory in the heart of the city. And everything was built around that. The theme park, the downtown, the hockey team, the hotels, everything was built around the community Mr. Hershey was creating. And that has lived on long past his time here. The legacy of what Milton Hershey has built, going all the way to even the Milton Hershey School for underprivileged kids in the country, it's something that it's tough to describe because I've been here. I've lived all 23 years of my life in central Pennsylvania, so I understand what Hershey is, and it's almost ingrained in the people of central Pennsylvania that, you know, your neighbor to your left and your right are almost your family. And as you continue to look across the region, you see people like you. You see people that have worked in factories. You see people that, you know, go to their job every day, work 9 to 5, come home and spend their night with their family. It's really it's crazy to think that a hockey team that draws 10,000 people a night is so tight knit, but it really is. And everything that trickles down through this community goes back to charity. With the Milton Hershey School, you look on the back of a Hershey bar, it's going to the Milton Hershey School. The reason that Hershey Entertainment and Resorts is there is the Milton Hershey School. And that just radiates across every other charity in the region. So whether it's something like Cocoa Packs, like Milton Hershey School, or the thing I think Hershey's most known for, which is the teddy bear toss in terms of charity in the hockey world and the rest of the world, it all comes back to making sure that you give back and help the community the same way that they would help you in a time of need.
The telethon is coming up next Thursday night. That's June the 4th at 7 p.m. Tell us again how people can tune in, Kyle, and if they want to help contribute, what can they do to get involved?
So if you head on over to youtube.com/chocolate hockey on Thursday, June 4th at 7 p.m., our live stream will be there. And that live stream will live on Chocolate Hockey's YouTube channel for long after the live stream. So if you can't make it that time, you can still come on in later and check it out. We will have a link up in the days beforehand for where people will be able to donate. If you want to donate $1, if you want to donate $10, if you want to sponsor a kids' meals for an entire year, anything is appreciated by what we are doing. So when you go on, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be having skits. We're going to be having information about Cocoa Packs, and we're going to be engaging with you. It's a live show. Liam and I are going to be reading off donations live, and if you have a comment or a question for Liam, we'll just answer it right there live. So it's going to be a very engaging show, a lot of fun, a lot of hopefully emotion that people feel of how special this organization of Cocoa Packs is. And I hope people, if you have a chance to tune in, whether it's live or video on demand, please join us on Thursday.
It's an incredible effort that's going to go into putting this together, I'm sure. And, you know, kudos to you and to the guys for getting behind a cause and trying to help people out during these tough times. It's an extremely admirable thing. And I hope if, fans or anybody from teams across this league are listening, maybe they'll get a similar idea and we'll be able to help people out across the American Hockey League, but starting right there in Hershey, which seems like a fitting spot. Kyle Mace runs chocolatehockey.com. Again, the telethon is June 4th at 7 p.m. On that YouTube channel, and as Kyle mentioned, you can tune in afterwards as well if you want to see all the fun that they're going to have. Thanks again for doing this, Kyle, and good luck with that. We hope it goes off with a bang.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Segment here of episode 22 of Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network. A big thanks to Kyle Mace from chocolatehockey.com. Again, head over there on Thursday of next week, June the 4th, 7 p.m., and check out that telethon. He's got a lot of cool stuff planned that'll hopefully raise a whole bunch of money for Cocoa Packs. And again, you can find out how to support that cause by following him on Twitter at Kyle Mace as well. it's a great initiative, Pat, and something that I think a lot of teams around this league should really keep an eye out on and maybe do themselves. In these times with no hockey and the extended offseason and things like that, it seems to me like a prime opportunity to really up your community engagement with the fans. And as we've talked about, there's really no better time given the availability that a lot of players and staff around the league have right now.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point. Players are, for the most part, are free. I mean, obviously some players will have to turn their attention toward the NHL for this summer, but a lot of players are at home. They can't even train that much, and a lot of players are willing to really get involved and get their hands dirty. I think the other thing, like you say, is community involvement. There's also a promotional benefit there as well. I mean, if this break goes on as long as it seems like it will, it could be 9 or 10 months between games for these clubs. That's a really long time for your team name to fall out of the public eye and lose a lot of marketing momentum that you may have had back in March. So anything you can do to get the team name out there, in addition, obviously, to doing good work for charity, I don't know why you wouldn't do it, to be quite honest. Full march to Kyle for what he's doing. He's a really impressive young guy, 23 years old. He has his hands in all sorts of different initiatives, and he got 4 players involved, including a 10-year NHL veteran like Matt Molson. Very impressive. So definitely will be tuning in. It should be a pretty unique, interesting experience, and I'm looking forward to see what Kyle can do with that.
Yeah, again, that's June 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can tune in to that on May 28th at 10 p.m.-ish Eastern Time. The Vegas Golden Knights will unveil the name and logo for their new AHL affiliate in Henderson, Nevada. So that's something to look forward to as well. And again, don't forget to head over to our Twitter at Around the A Pod and vote on our What If the AHL Took the 24-team expanded playoff format poll. We're going to put all the matchups up there for you to pick, either based on fandom or on hockey sense, who you think would win those series, and see if we can predict a hypothetical Calder Cup champion moving on over the next few weeks or so. Final thoughts here, Pat, before we say goodbye?
Well, it's been another hectic week, obviously, with this NHL news, but at least it gives, I guess, a little bit of stretcher to our summer, we think, provided that they can pull this off. When I think that will be a huge achievement if they can. I mean, the logistics are rather daunting. But if they can, that will be a little bit of a sense of normalcy for the hockey world that hasn't seen a whole lot in the past 2.5 months. But obviously, as we said, off the ice, the wheels keep turning, and we got more news coming up in the next few days. So stay tuned.
Yeah, MVP, Rookie of the Year still to be announced, and a whole lot more as this extended offseason develops. For now, we'll say thank you again to Larry Landon and Kyle Mace for their time, and to you for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week here on Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Thanks for listening to Around the A. Be sure to tune in again next week. Find Around the A on the Sports Podcasting Network, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Interact with us on social media. Give us your thoughts using the hashtag Around the A, and follow us at Around the A Pod.